May all beings always have happiness and its causes. May all beings always be free of pain and its causes. For as long as space abides, as long as the world remains, just so long may I be there, resolving all beings' pain. Dechen Barwa. Shall we do it in Tibetan? All right. Ri Dechen Barwa Wangi Potandu Dedon Soso Tabe Shegu Majak Tebe Rashin Le Dorje Nima Nangwa Chemba Jugunangwa Tai Dorje Chu Jikten Wanchu Tu Che Katsu Pema Gilba Gording Awan Gyur Nashi Sinan Wanchin Heruka Sangwa Yeshe Vajavara Idem Chodeve Gilbert Ichinder Malu Gege Iterik Chema Chokten Chagya Wanchu De Donkar Wanze Dorje Pawa Dagi To Nando Nyamba Chembe Hangidu Dorje Gui Gargi Sisumyo Game Sungi Shede Kamsumgo Öser Marbe Korde Yon Lakya Shishi Dangshin Yoshin Gubarche Dorje Chakpa Chemba Tugini Namning and Dubduge Chosuchin Dorje Shakya Chakpa Chemba Yi Namshi Dewa Chemba Dam Sheva Chaye Gucho Togi Roka Chen Dogi Kongu Chewa Shinchupe Rajan Sasum Wangi Lazola Gibe Soa Depsa Chinchilo Choktung under Deve Beldada Tome Wantu Chepeng Druso Yabda Gelwanam Tangyer Mepe Gandrin Sumden Tinshen Lama Che Ridzen Charme Tupten Chatsola So Wadep Sunyamlen Tarchin Sho. I like it over there. I can't see it over there because of the light. It's good. Thank you. In three real jewels, three root bliss-filled ones, channels, winds, bright orbs, this Bodhi mind, essence, nature, moving love mandal, until full Bodhi I seek refuge. Kunjok sum yate shek tawa sum, zalung tigle rang shing chanchup sem, Ngorang shing tu che ging kor la, chanchuk ning bevardu jab suchi. In three real jewels, three root bliss-filled ones, channels, winds, bright orbs, this Bodhi mind, essence, nature, moving love mandal, until full Bodhi I seek refuge. Oh, like moons in water, sights deceive us, we ever roam bound in cyclic chains. So all may rest in their clear mind sphere, I raise Bodhi through four boundless states. Oh, Nasognam Chude Tsun Reiji, Korwa Lugu Jundu Chan Pedro, Rang Riga Sel Ying Sung Yao Se Cheer, Teme Shi Ang Ne Sem Che Do. Oh, like moons in water, sights deceive us, we ever roam bound in cyclic chains. So all may rest in their clear mind sphere, I raise Bodhi through four boundless states. We'll just take a few moments to settle enjoyably, pleasurably, going to listen, practice something of immense potential and benefit for us. So just settle into your seat. And as you inhale, feel that you are inhaling deep blueness, sky blueness. And it's coming in with your breath just very naturally. And because you're relaxed, you easily breathe all the way down to your belly. In any case, the blue skyness comes deep, deep into your belly. Starts to fill your body completely. And if you're familiar with holding the small vase, that little pocket in the center of your belly, your dough, you can hold that gently, and we'll just let our bodies fill up with this azure sky blueness. Totally relaxing blueness, totally delightful, spacious, open, sweet. And it can come in a little bit with every breath. It's just filling you, just naturally expanding throughout your body. You're not doing anything, it just opens and expands. And with the out-breath, you just relax, no particular intention about that. And if by any chance you feel cool, then the sky blueness comes in with a sense of comforting warmth. And if on the other hand you're feeling warm, the sky blueness comes in with a sense of sweet coolness. It's just that simple. And may whatever comfort and ease and learning that comes to us now, today in our practice, may this really be an auspiciousness that is immediately and forever beneficial to every one of us, to everyone, to all beings. May our practice have that kind of fruition. So good morning. And this morning we are looking again at some of the central points that Jigme Lingpa and following him Patrul Rinpoche offers us as advice for our practice of Tara practice, for all of the tantric practices that we do, all of the sadhanas that we do. We know that the main thing really that we're practicing is Gerim, the stage of creation, sometimes called generation phase. And really the main thing that we're doing is learning to give up the ordinary sense that we have of our bodies, our speech, and our minds, the three vajras. Body, speech, and mind are what we, without even thinking about it, without really quite helplessly, we have a certain kind of holding around. We feel your body is, male or female, takes up a certain amount of space, has a certain hardness or softness or skin, and just the most ordinary things. And we identify with that. And then our usual speech is just ordinary speech, sometimes falling into some of the non-wholesome areas of speech. But when we practice, and our mind is just racing with all kinds of ordinary thoughts, which are based on which we really can't help having. As long as we have a sense of ordinariness, what do we mean by a sense of ordinariness? We mean just our uninhibited way of going about things and looking at things, and this involves very particularly a certain kind of dualism. You're out there, I'm over here. And we may think, well, how could I ever get over that? That's the way things really are. There's an outside and an inside, and don't be talking to me about some nonsense. And yet, we do have experiences in dream and meditation and love, and, just sometimes a little bit of that out and inness begins to fade away a little bit. We do have those kinds of experiences. And in fact, that's not the way it really is. I don't think science even thinks that's the way it really is. I mean, there's a whole bunch of, protons and neutrons and strings and whatever there are nowadays, and they're all just kind of flung out throughout space, and some of them coagulate together in certain ways, and we think, oh, this is a thing, this is a room or a table, but really it's all just expressions of space, really. I think even science would say that in some sense. But even if they wouldn't yet, we say that, right? We understand that in the practice of, like when we practice Tara, when we practice Vajrasattva, so we're changing our sense of ordinariness, and we're giving it up. And that means we're giving up a whole universe, really a whole constellation of habit patterns, with this very simple gesture. That's the beauty of this practice. Your body vajra becomes Tara. Well, as soon as we become Tara, the whole world is a Tara universe, just like the whole world is a Vajrasattva universe, or a Shitro universe, or a Guru Rinpoche universe. And what this helps us understand is that actually everything is arising from the base, the ground, the Shi, the Dharmakaya, the nature of emptiness, the ocean of reality. Everything is just a wave in that ocean of reality, just an expression of that ocean of reality. Now the mind begins to chatter, and no, that can't be, right? Maybe. Sometimes it will. That's okay. You let it chatter. No problem. It is also an expression of the ocean of reality. Fine. And the truth is that our ordinary mind can't understand its own extraordinary nature. So part of what our practice of Gerim is that we are coming into a space, a kind of larger space, a different kind of space, but it's a space in our own experience where we experience ourselves as arising. We do the Za, Hom, Bum, Ho. And then we're there, arising out of space as green Tara. First the seed syllable, So there is in a subtle way of talking about this that you're familiar with is the way of practicing in terms of the three absorptions, the three meditative stabilizations, if you remember. So the first one is Teishi Nigidingazin, reality. Reality. So when we practice, we take a moment to touch into reality, however we understand it. This reality, what do we mean by that? We mean to whatever degree you understand the spacious nature that is actually the ground of everything. You have studied something about emptiness. You have had some kind of semtree where you're looking into understanding your mind. You're looking into understanding emptiness. You've read about the Dharmakaya. When you look at space, when you bring space into your body, there's some sense that the world really isn't cut up into slices that are identified as tables and chairs and carpets and Harvey and Ann and Kwang and Deborah and so on. That's really not how it is. I mean, the ocean isn't cut up into slices, right? It's all ocean. It's all ocean. The waves, the foam, the bubbles, even the fish. Somehow they're expressions of the ocean. They came from the ocean, really, in some way. And we think, oh no, fish, ocean, big fish, little fish. And so what we're learning to do as we practice Gerim is relax all of that work that we do of assembling things into neatly named rows of this and that and over there and good and bad and liked and not liked. Where that takes actually a certain kind of effort. And that's one reason that from the Dzogchen perspective, every thought is a kind of effort. As long as we don't recognize it as, rising out of our mind just as an expression of our true nature, there's some kind of holding. We can't help it. We can't help that holding. It's not that you're a bad practitioner or anything. It's, from beginningless time, we are used to grabbing on, and the grabbing on that we do is fundamentally related to a sense that we have of how we are as beings. We feel as beings that we are separate and cut off from other beings, and this naturally makes us feel at some level kind of desperate and alone, and so we grab on to beings or things or abstract things like fame or name or money, which is really pretty abstract in some ways. And once we have a sense of being this ordinary kind of person who's always in need of something because we're so cut off from everything that could possibly really nourish us, we can't help but have reactive patterns. And that's what our life is made of, our reactions. Liking this, not liking that, building habits, organizing our time so that we can get what we like, but not necessarily what will really, really make us happy. We're making a distinction, which sat in on a dissertation yesterday talking about Aristotle, and going back to Aristotle and Plato, making a distinction between hedonic happiness and eudaimonic happiness. In other words, the happiness of a, great party, something like that. Yeah, you have a good time, but it doesn't last. It's not sustainable, and it's not deeply nourishing. Maybe if you have a really meaningful conversation with somebody, but that's not how parties are organized. It's not what they're really for. So we, as practitioners, we're quite concerned, actually, with what is going to bring about real happiness, real that's going to stay with us, that's not vulnerable to the causes and conditions of the different things that happen in our lives over which we will never have any control. Well, real happiness, from our perspective in this tradition, really can only come when we are in touch with something that is real and lasting. And there are not too many things in that category. In fact, the only thing that's really in that category is our own real nature, what we really are. Dharmakaya, ground, that's lasting. There's always bliss there. We have some trouble accessing it, but that's a temporary issue that our practice is addressing. And this Dharmakaya then, this real nature that we are, is fundamentally what we're getting accustomed to as we practice Gerim, as we practice this stage of completion. Because to whatever degree we understand it, in a way it's a great game of let's pretend, until it becomes real for us. And who doesn't like let's pretend? When we're children, so many games, making up stories. Let's pretend. Oh, so many times I remember saying this to my friends. Let's pretend we're on a mountain and we're endless, right? Let's pretend we're poor and then we get rich. Let's pretend we're a housekeeper, and just like that. It's so much fun, right? Human beings, we have a florid imagination. I mean, we just have this capacity to pretend and enjoy. Of course, this is a very special type of pretending, because now what we're pretending is actually what's true. But we think of it as pretending until we know that it's true. But it just have that, these kinds of practices do have that kind of joy. Let go. Okay, I'll look in the mirror, I know what I'm going to see. I'll pretend something completely different. I'm going to look in the mirror and see green. I'm going to look at, an image of green Tara as if I were looking in the mirror. Okay. So what I mean is there's a certain kind of playfulness in it. And you have to be playful. It's fun. You get too serious, then we're clamping down on me again. So some balance, this kind of lightness, and yet this is extremely profound pretending. And in the end, the pretending dissolves its own sense of pretending into a complete recognition that this is actually what's going on. So back to the three absorptions. Dharmakaya, our ground, as we have said. And then this ground, which is spacious. Ground, don't think land. Ground means a foundation, but of course it's a baseless foundation. It's a foundationless foundation. It's a bottomless space that is the space of everything. And if you're part of the Ching-Tzu teaching, if you're not now, you will be. That's really very essentially the first chapter after all. Everything is included. Everything is included in this oceanic Dharmakaya. And the oceanic Dharmakaya is not just some kind of dead emptiness. It's completely suffused with light, with luminosity, with energy, with potential. Just like when you look at the sky. Big, empty sky, but it's not just empty. If it were just empty, you couldn't even see it, as it turns out. Right? There have to be objects for light to light up. So when we see the sky, we also see light. We can't really separate the two. When you look up at that brightness, or even as the space of this room, it's illuminated. We can't really separate, and there's no need to separate the Dharmakaya from the Sambhogakaya, but we want to acknowledge that this is the second absorption, Gunda Nangwe Dingazin, the absorption or meditative stabilization of complete illumination. So what is that? Well, everything that's appearing to us in our Tara-ness is light. We, our bodies, are light. All the objects that we see are light. And in this kind of seeing, in this kind of world, what we're practicing is a kind of non-separation. You know, it is said that every Buddha creates their own universe. They don't create it by hobbling like we did with this temple, you know, pushing down walls. Although that's an analog. It's actually quite a nice analog of what. But for Buddhas, and that means for us too, when we're Tara, the world just arises as part of our pure vision. Cultivating purity is a very significant aspect of what we're doing as we become acquainted with these, more and more deeply steeped in these meditative absorptions. So this is a possibility of opening up some kind of, as Harvey likes to say, softening of a sense of duality. You know, in Buddhism we talk about non-duality and duality, but we also recognize that in the spectrum of our experience, there can be a little bit of more or less of that. You know, you could feel like sometimes in dream, or just sometimes when you're really relaxed and you're walking in nature, or you're just sitting with somebody that you love, and you're just really at ease, and there's just kind of this whole field is there. You know, it's not like I'm over here and you're over there across a chasm, but we're creating a field, a mandala really, and this really does occur. I think you feel it sometimes when we do the giving and taking practice, especially when we do it in dyads and triads. You know, you're sitting with one or two people and there's some kind of, you know, something arises. And in our Western Cartesian minds, we don't know how to make sense of this, but so what? We know it. We experience it. And that is an analog, a parallel, an echo, so to speak, of the reality that we're seeking to become more familiar with of, so here we are at Tara, we've got a whole field. The whole universe is our field. Everything, we send out light, we receive blessings from all of the Taras, we send out light, we bless the whole universe. Ken MacLeod says, so when we do that, what this means is, we say that the entire universe is, you know, purified. For our experience right now, is completely purified. The infinity of space and beings is filled with Taras and living beings that we're offering Tara-ness to, and then they become Taras also, and we're all singing together. So one way to understand this, that he says, that I think is very useful, is that the very, very least we can say that the entirety of our experience at that time is entarad. You know, everything that we can imagine is luminous and is empty and appearing. Just as it appears, it's empty. Just as it is empty, it appears. That's such a beautiful, we want to recognize how these are totally woven together. It's light, after all. Light, you can put your hand through light, right? It's empty. It's empty in the sense of being non-obstructive. It's empty in all the Madhyamaka senses, like everything is empty. You can't actually find Tara, right? But its emptiness is actually the ground of its appearing. How about that? We said that this Dharmakaya is radiant with luminosity. Sambhogakaya, it's a way of talking about the Sambhogakaya. This is a description of reality. Our reality, right now, it's our reality. Our mind is right now empty, and it's right now luminous. And it right now can kick up, arise what arises from it is all kinds of images. And in this practice, in Garen practice, we are because of the blessings and the mantra and the transmission and all of that we have received, we have this possibility of it just arising, just like that. Like, a wave rising from the ocean. And so we have this term that Lama Tenzin also talked about, the Shinang, right? Shine Nangwa. Things arise from the basis. There's nowhere else from there to arise to. And there's no place the basis is not. Also Longchenpa's point. Dharmakaya is everywhere. Longchenpa also says, in discussing Madhyamaka, I think it's that he's discussing Madhyamaka, wisdom is everywhere. Dharmakaya is everywhere. Emptiness is everywhere. Even we were reading in Tibetan yesterday, Thursday, Gyaltsab, commentary on the wisdom chapter of the Shantideva's text. And he says that, all objects of knowledge are included in two things, conventional truth and ultimate truth. Conventional truth means everything, all the objects of our senses. Ultimate truth means their emptiness. Everything is included in that. There's nothing outside that. There's nowhere beyond that. That's definite. Buddha said, that's definite. That's definite. And then he goes on to say that all objects of knowledge, therefore, are included in the two truths. Buddha knows the two truths. Buddha is omniscient. In other words, the openness of our minds that we are, becoming more and more acquainted with through this practice is one in which emptiness and appearance are totally united. And so as we practice, we can be just enjoying that and just noticing how that is or isn't for us. I mean, of course, you and me, when we do this practice, we kind of go in and out of feeling like we're really Tara and everything's made of light and everything's just spontaneously there. And so you can just observe that, observe, this is me talking, but, just observe how does it feel in your body? When you start to feel more relaxed and open and like everything. I mean, it's okay, imagine it. We may even find that we have some kind of inner rule that we shouldn't somehow let go into this glorious possibility there. It's just Tara, really. But that's the way it really is. What we understand of the world, the way we understand the world, mistakenly, Kensama Rinpoche always, like every other word almost, it would seem, when he was really streaming teaching, he would say, mistaken mind, mistaken mind, mistaken mind. Most of what we're in is mistaken mind. But mistaken mind is also just another wave in the ocean. It doesn't have any establishment to it. And so as we're practicing, why do we practice this way? Because the more we can open to a sense of, let's call it fluidity, non-reification, emptiness, and a kind of mandala really means, the mandala principle means that we're all part of one dynamism. And as Lama Tenzin said many times, in practicing Gerim, we're training in dynamism. We're training in, because everything is just the cell, the dynamic display of reality. And we're training in seeing it that way. And of course we don't see it that way. But we're training, and why? Because the stronger our idea is that we're real and we're over here and that that's real and that's over there, the stronger our reactive patterns are. Liking and disliking, and you can just mull this over for the next week or two and see if this seems true for you in your experience. If I'm feeling like chocolate ice cream and I see some, there's a certain kind of, that's over there and it's not in my hand yet. And I want it. And so I have to kind of galvanize some resources and go get it. And then I'm going to eat it. And then I'll have had it. and then it'll be gone. And then maybe I need some more, sometimes you need a second helping. But there's a certain kind of reification in all of that. There's a certain kind of maybe tightening of the energies in all of that. There's not a sense of flow. I mean, I could still enjoy the ice cream and feel, oh, it's just an arising of reality. I'm arising of reality. I have some. It's so nice. And then it dissolves into reality. Everything dissolves into reality, and it arises from reality, and it's just, it's just a whole different kind of feeling. So we're practicing that dynamism. Gerim is, about recognizing that we arise out of reality. But out of reality doesn't mean away from reality. We arise from reality, and we're always staying right in reality. The Dharmakaya is everywhere. There's no falling out of it. And so we practice in this way so that we soften up this reification process that is so compelling to us, and that propels us into all kinds of processes of reactivity which bring us pain. They bring us pain. It's not because they're wrong according to the books or something like that. They bring us pain. And we want to address suffering and every degree of suffering. Suffering is something that we experience in body, speech, and mind. And so in the practice of Gerim, we practice in body, the three vajras, body, speech, and mind. So our body becomes the body of the deity, and it's pure. Deity is pure. Deity means, in a certain sense, that's what it means. Deity doesn't mean having a particular kind of, mudra or even hand ornaments. Deities have these. But the fundamental thing of recognizing the world as sacred, as the body of Buddha, is recognizing that it's fundamentally pure. Fundamentally pure. So then our speech, we're saying mantra. We're not just saying, curse words or political jargon or academic jargon or whatever the jargon of our field is. We're not saying that. We're saying these very sacred syllables that we feel are sacred because we know they have been chanted with great reverence for thousands of years. They have come to us through our own personal teachers who heard them from their teachers, going back to getting it from the Sambhogakaya, Dharmakaya itself. So our speech is pure. And then, so we have thoughts. Why am I doing this practice? It's not going very well. Ooh, it's going really well. Finally, I'm turning green. Oh my God, I've been waiting for this for years. So these are all thoughts, and all the thoughts are coming from the Dharmakaya. Yay! So actually, every thought, every appearance to our senses, and one of the distinguishing features of Tantra and of Dzogchen is that we use our senses. We don't kind of try to, like in foundational traditions, the first two vehicles in particular, we don't try to stop our thoughts, and we don't try to block our senses, not at all. We recognize that there's ceaseless arising in the Dharmakaya, and that shows us, in fact, how powerful it is. Just like if you've ever had a really good view of lightning, it's quite terrifying, but also absolutely mesmerizing on our hill in New Mexico. The lightning, you can see it all around, and sometimes you can see the whole bolt of lightning, hopefully about a mile away. Gets too close, it's really kind of scary. And the thunder is so loud. When thunder's right above you, it's just like the whole universe is thunder. And this lightning, and in some sense, the lightning shows the power of space. Space is just nice and empty and blue sky, but where does lightning come from? It has power. And so we say that the Dharma has real power. Our practice has real power. The Dharmakaya has real power. What we're working here in these practices is something that's very, very, very powerful. We are looking to experience to whatever degree we're capable of experiencing it. And it might be that 1 or 2 moments in a whole session or a whole retreat really, really lights up for you. Oh, this is something, it's like a little tear in the cloth of the ordinariness of your mind. And of course that grows larger and larger and more sustainable. Even that little glimpse that you have had, right? It's important. It's important. One reason to talk about such glimpses, when you talk with Harvey and I, for example, is because we can mirror back to you that it's important. Because it's sort of not so below the radar of ordinary life. You yourself might forget it. I myself have forgotten many things. I realize sometimes I write them down and years later I read and, you just forget it. You just forget because, it's just so not part of our ordinary routine. So it can be helpful. So those are some of the very, very main things. It's very much also about relaxation. You have to remember that. Sometimes we go on learning this and learning that. Just relax. There's nothing as relaxing as reality. Reality is totally relaxing. It's totally secure. It's totally trustworthy. It's never going to run out on you. It's never going to fail. And so whatever is unrelaxed in us, and that's why always in general in our meditation we look to get in touch with where we're holding tension in the body, at that level, and relax into reality, relax into the Dharmakaya, that spaciousness which is our focus of the meditative stabilization on suchness, the luminosity which is naturally there, which is the focus right there with the meditative stabilization of complete illumination. And then, this complete illumination is itself compassion. That's all that ever really arises out. The movement of reality is compassion, as we always say, Ngo Orang Shin Tukche, right? Essence, nature, heart. That's you're arising as Tara, you're arising as compassionate expression of reality. Everything is compassion. That's so nice. Wouldn't it be nice to see the world that way? It would be much softer. Yes, and terrible things happen, but they're not what's ultimate. And we have to deal with our feelings about them and so on. And yet, in this moment, and we spend a lot of time talking about that, as you know, overall in our teachings here and in your own progress on the path. Absolutely, that's essential. And at the same time, this is a moment to say, yes, and there is this ocean. There is this unquenchable ocean. And so then the wisdom and compassion come together into what's called the causal meditative absorption, Gyu Dingyatsin, and that is the seed syllable, in this case, Tam. Compassion, emptiness, reality itself, out of which the whole universe of green Tara is going to arise. And that's what we practice when we say the mantra. So those are some of the main points that Jigme Lingpa makes here. And we do, if you don't have it, we do thanks to Mark and Claire. Jennifer, did you work on this one? I think Jennifer Dallenmeyer worked on this one. We do have a transcript of Lama Tenzin's teachings on this. So, hi, welcome. Just finishing up another piece. So I'll stop here and just see, maybe you have a couple of questions, or not, or comments of your own.
Just on the third absorption, it's the causal absorption. And from this, I've always been concentrating on the seed syllable hung appearing, but you're saying is that it also in the Green Tara practice, this is creating the full field of Tara.
In all the practices, that's why it's called a seed syllable. Everything arises from it, just like that. And that's why it's given this name, causal. That make sense? Okay. Probably doesn't change how you actually do the practice, but that's how it's identified in terms of these three absorptions.
But in my case, I've been concentrating so hard of seeing the hung syllable itself.
Yeah, that's
and
fine.
Then from that, it's just the next
Everything
step.
just opens up.
But
Yeah.
he's saying hung, and you're saying tum.
Well, depending on, in Vajrasattva it's hung, in Tara it's tam, right? There are different seed syllables, but the principle is the same in all of them. Green tam, yes.
Actually kind of reminded me of a question that I have. So these three different absorptions, as we're going through the actual Tara practice, how would we practice them?
Yeah. Lama Tenzin did also speak to this. Especially when you're doing it alone, and you can time, one thing he emphasized, you may remember, is that when you do this kind of practice alone, you can really make yourself you're in charge of the time. So, like after the Zahom Bum Ho, after everything dissolves, you could take a little time just to sit in that emptiness, to recognize that it's inseparable from luminosity, and then you'll naturally, then the next thing actually is the tam. So, and also you can recognize that how much all of your practices actually are introduced. They don't use that terminology, but every time you dissolve, when we do refuge, all of the dissolutions are a kind of dzogrim, completion phase. As Lama Tenzin said, Jimmy Lingpa says, it's not that, so we're practicing here with this, he was talking about Mahayoga style, of Maha Anuanati, Mahayoga style, which means that we're really focusing on the whole creation phase. But it's not that there's no completion phase, because we do dissolve. So similarly in Vajrasattva and refuge, all of those times and all of the different practices that we have, there's a moment where everything just dissolves into space, which reminds you that in fact everything does dissolve into space and everything arises from space. So it's not like your practice isn't already introducing you to this aspect of Teishin Chekpe Dzing is in reality absorption. And also your symmetry is doing that in various ways that it does that. So, and this is another way in which all our practices are really connected. Or at the beginning, on Tuesday nights we do just sitting, watching breath. So in order to be in this absorption, your mind has to be a little bit relaxed and a little bit settled. So actually all of our practices are helping with these three absorptions. And you can review them and do them a bit in the context of Tara practice.
So like after the Zahong Bam Ho, would that be the first two absorptions would be like the settling into that spaciousness and luminosity, and then just the third one is coming up out of that into the tongue?
Yeah. It's giving these names that then are analogous to the three Buddha dimensions, the three Buddha bodies. So the Dharmakaya is associated with the first meditative absorption, the Sambhogakaya with the second, and the third with the emanation dimension. And this is quite central to our vocabulary of reality. That becomes more and more important as we go more and more into Ati, Maha'anu and Ati, Dzogchen. And so it's all part of the so when we're well familiar with these, then Dzogchen becomes very easy. So this is part of our flowing into Dzogchen practice. Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. Um, so I hope it's helpful, and you know, as questions arise, just keep track of them, and we'll have another time to reflect on them. Very wonderful. We're all here on Dakini Day. This is actually Dakini Day. So we have a little bit of a break now, and I don't know if you have a little more setting up to do, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I do want to invite everybody to sit up close. There's so few of us. Move up, we will not bite. And because it's Dakini Day, we won't bite. And you know, if you want to move your chair up closer, you're welcome to sit on chairs, and just because it makes the field stronger if we're together. Okay, so have a little break, and when you seat yourselves again, please come sit up.
About 10 minutes.
10 minutes, is that okay? Hi, is anybody out there watching?
We have 8 on.
Hi.